Assalamu alaikum. I remember those moments when I started understanding the ayat in the Qur'an for the first time. Those moments changed everything for me. I remember the first time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened my heart to Islam. And Alhamdulillah alladhi hadana wa lawla lahu la nahtadi. Wa subhanallah. Those moments when I first reverted, I didn't understand anything of the Arabic language. I didn't understand one word in the Arabic language. I didn't even understand how to recite Surah Al-Fatiha correctly. I still remember those days. I remember those days when I would try to recite the broken version of Surah Al-Fatiha with the transliteration, and I'd be reading it in English Arabic basically, where when I recited it sounds like English, like Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Like, I remember I used to sound like this, and then I was reciting it that way. I was just reciting it like it sounded like English but Arabic. You know what I mean? SubhanAllah. Those days, I remember when I was learning more about the deen, and I was learning more about the miracles of the Qur'an and everything, and I just built that strong desire to learn the Arabic language. Fast forward today, alhamdulillah, I'm able to understand about 70 to 80% of the Qur'an when I read it without translation. And alhamdulillah, I'm very grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for these results, because I would have not achieved these results without His permission, and of course without me taking action and learning the Arabic language as well. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, لا يغيروا ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. And I remember those moments, when it hurt. It really hurt. I remember when I was listening to the Quran. I loved the sounds of it. I loved the beautiful tilawat of it, and it was like medicine to my ears, subhanallah. But because I didn't know any Arabic at all, I had to rely on the English translation to actually understand what I'm listening to, right? So what I would do is, when I was in my car, I'd be playing like the English and Arabic version. There was like a full Qur'an playlist with Arabic and English, where it was Mishari al-Afasi reciting the Qur'an, and it was just like in English, I don't know who did the English translation, but they were just saying it. Like, you'd have the beautiful ayat being recited by Mishari al-Afasi, and then right after just some simple speech of a translation of that. And it kind of just it disrupted the flow. I just wanted to be able to listen to the Quran without having to have it pause every 5-10 seconds to be able to say the English thing, for me to be able to understand what that was, and then having to constantly go through that, and then make it the listening twice as long because of that too, when instead I could listen to it as the Arabic flows, and I can understand it as it goes on. And subhanallah, I remember when I was learning the Arabic language, and I slowly started to pick up on these things, and I slowly started to understand more the basic common things, and then after that I started picking up on the more of the vocabulary, up until the point where I could understand more. And then I remember those times, when I started understanding the first ayat. There were many moments, but a specific moment that I can remember that I will not forget, when I was driving in my car and I was listening to Surah Al-Zumar. I was listening to the ending of it, a very emotional tilawa of the ending of Zumar, and it was talking about the people of Jahannam being driven to Jahannam in groups, and the people of Jannah being driven to Jannah in groups, and basically the ending ayat. And I remember when I started understanding those ayat, it completely it pierced me, especially when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was talking about the people of Jahannam, and being I started imagining it happening in front of my eyes, how that happening on Yawm al-Qiyamah, and that completely it struck me. It struck me. I could not describe the feeling in words, but it struck fear into my heart when I at that moment, the idea of subhanallah, that they're going to be in Jahannam forever. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from that. But the moment I felt that, it just was it struck fear into my heart, subhanallah. And then it started talking about the people of Jannah, and then I started feeling the hope, subhanallah. It's rahmah from Allah. But I remember those moments. I understood the ayat with just listening to the tilawa, just listening to the recitation, without having to rely on English translation at all. And I understood it. And at that moment, I couldn't help but get emotional. Subhanallah, it's an amazing feeling when you can listen to the Quran and you don't have to listen to the English translation at all, and you can actually understand a majority, if not all, the ayat. With you can understand it. You can understand the translation without having to rely upon looking at English for it. And subhanallah, I cannot describe the feeling, because you have very specific tilawat, different types of tilawat, different types of recitations, where the qari, the one who's reciting, they sound very different. You'll notice they'll like, their voice will be like calmer at certain moments, and then at certain moments in the ayat, their voices will raise or it'll become more intense or something like that. Like their emotion, the way they're reciting it matches what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying at that moment, that invokes that emotion. And that's why, you know, subhanAllah, like you can see people who listen to the Qur'an without even understanding it, it strikes them still. They feel emotional because of those moments, that, you know, even though they don't understand it, subhanallah, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that, you know, in the Quran, that you'll see them like crying, their tears will be overflowed with, their eyes will be overflowed with tears when they listen, like subhanallah. I remember, you know, when I could understand it, you know, I could feel those highs and those lows, and when I was understanding those words, it was a completely different experience from versus not being able to understand it at all, right? Because when you understand those highs and those lows, you can see why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like you can feel Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking to you and emphasizing these things versus like not emphasizing the other things as much, but like you can feel like the emotion at those certain moments, especially when, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about Yawm al-Qiyamah or Jannah or Jahannam and these kind of things where it gets super intense and you can feel it because you understand it, like subhanallah. And I remember, you know, from that moment on, I just wanted to continue learning the Arabic language and learning more about the Quran, learning how to recite it better too. I remember when I was trying to perfect my tajweed and I was trying to make my tajweed good, and the moment like my tajweed became better too and I could understand, that was the ultimate combo for being able to taste the sweetness in Salah, to be able to start tasting the sweetness when I'm reciting, when, you know, and I even had the opportunity to lead the Salah a couple times in my local masjid, and it's a completely life-changing experience when you're able to understand the ayat as you're reciting them. You know, subhanallah, I cannot describe it in words, right? You have to experience it for yourself, because though that, like, just that difference between understanding exactly what is it you're reciting at that moment, it knocks you into that khushu' that you're looking for, right? Before, I found khushu' harder. Like even when I'm doing the silent salah, like dhuhr and asr and whatnot, like I feel myself kind of rushing through those a little bit. But the moment you actually start taking your time to recite different surah, like different surah, when you start taking the time to recite different surahs, then at that moment, you know, you'll be able to gain that khushu', especially when you understand it. And, you know, that's why I love Salat al-Fajr, Salat al-Maghrib, and Salat al-Isha, because at those moments, you know, those are the salahs that, salawat, those are the salawat that you're able to recite out loud. I know with Dhuhr and Asr, like when you're in the masjid, you'll see that, you know, the imam is silent because it's a silent, those are the silent salat. But usually in the Fajr, Maghrib, Isha, you know, it'll always be like reciting out loud. So whether I'm reciting by myself, I'm praying by myself, or I'm praying in the masjid, I can either recite or the imam, listen to the imam recite. And subhanallah, even during those times when I was praying behind the imam in the salah, I remember back then it bothered me so much, especially during Shahru Ramadan, like the month of Ramadan, when I would be standing in Taraweeh and I did not understand, you know, like 90% plus, 95% plus of the words, and it really hurt because I wanted to really understand what was going on, especially at those moments, you know, you're in the salah for a long time and you're constantly hearing the tilawah, the beautiful tilawah, and you're like, if only I could understand this, right? If only I could experience how that feels, how it feels to understand the salah. And I'm only starting to taste that sweetness, you know, the moment I'm standing behind the imam in the salah and I'm actually understanding, you know, the recitation. I can understand what the imam is reciting, and that makes a big difference because that knocks me into the khushu' that I look for at those moments, you know, when I feel Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to me at those moments and I can feel it. It's a completely different experience. And, you know, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to be able to reach next Ramadan. Ameen. This Ramadan, this is going to be the first Ramadan where, because Ramadan was Ramadan's coming around the corner and it was almost a little while ago. At that moment, I did have a better grasp of understanding Arabic, but I was not at the level I am now. Alhamdulillah. Like now, right? It's completely different. Like I can actually start understanding full ayat and everything. So I'm looking forward to when Ramadan comes to experience that feeling in Taraweeh. What I'm trying to say here is Arabic is that one thing that changes everything, you know, subhanallah. And this is just scratching the surface to the Arabic language. This is something you can achieve within months. You just have to focus on memorizing the specific words, the most common words that show up in the Quran. And same with if you want to speak the Arabic language, you focus on the phrases and you focus on the words, the vocabulary, the verbs, the nouns that are most commonly used when you're speaking. Like I notice that when I'm speaking the Arabic language, when I practice in speaking sessions, I always find myself using a specific set of words the most versus other words, and these are the ones that I like instantly remember. Like it doesn't, you know, take even a second for me to think about it. Like أريد أن أذهب إلى المسجد لصلاة الفجر، صليت صلاة الفجر في المسجد. هذا الصباح هكذا. Like you start thinking of these things and they just come to your head right away, but then there's other words that you know it takes time for you to remember them because you don't use them that often. So you want to focus on the stuff that you're able to, that you want to focus on the stuff specifically that is repeated the most. And that's the same with the Qur'an. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's a certain amount of words. I believe like there's around 300 that make up around understanding 70% of the Qur'an. Like subhanallah, you know, that's a rahmah on its own, you know, making it easy for us to be, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala making it easy for us to be able to understand the Qur'an if we just approach it in the right way. But I remember, you know, that desire and the feeling of getting those results is what continued to drive me. But the biggest thing in the beginning is the niyyah. Why do you want to study the Arabic language? Why do you want to be able, you know, why is it really that you want to study Arabic? Like, is understanding the Qur'an really that big of a deal to you specifically? Like, is it something that like it drives you insane? Basically, it drives you insane that you don't understand it. Like at the same time, like, you know, being able to build a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being able to, you know, understand the du'at of the anbiya and the du'at in the Quran as well, and these kind of things, right? How important is it to you at this moment? Like, how much do you desire it? Remember that feeling, because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you that desire, that's a rahmah on its own. Just having that desire to want to be able to do it, because that desire is what's going to drive you. You just have to stay patient and be consistent and look at Arabic as a daily part of your life, right? And every time I learn the Arabic language, you know, I always, you know, remember that niyyah. Why do I want to study the Arabic language? And I remember I make my intention because I'm doing this for the sake of Allah. I want to learn the Arabic language for the sake of Allah. I want to understand the Quran so that I can get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and understand the deen, and to be able to seek knowledge and these kind of things. If you're looking for some assistance in learning the Arabic language, I recommend you go ahead and join my school community. I'll link it down in the description below. In this school community, we bring Muslims together who desire to learn the Arabic language and for the sake of the deen, and to be able to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, understand the Quran, understand the Sunnah, and, you know, to have that opportunity to be able to seek knowledge in these kind of things, to be able to basically learn the Arabic language for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the community, you'll be able to find more resources, and inshallah I have great things planned with the community. So go ahead and join. It's going to be in the description below. I'll also link the institute that I'm studying in, Andalus Institute, which is the institute that I mentioned in my previous videos that I, you know, still study to this day. And if you're interested in an institute, I'll put it in the description below. And هذا هو. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بارك الله فيكم.